Hi everyone, my name is Anjali Reddy and today I'm going to be talking about the importance of Pacoima street art. And I'm going to start off with a story of when I went to Pacoima for the first time and I saw this mural that was painted by a group of muralists, and one of the artists, Manny Velasquez, told me that the reason why they started painting this mural was to help the children who were in violent gangs and had bad activities going on, sort of to give them a place for them to put in all of their work. And through this mural painting, they all came together and formed a community. Every single day, they would come, layer on the base paint, put on some more details, and the kids had a lot of fun doing this. They had people who they could come and talk to, they made friends, and it was a lot of fun for all of them. And one day, one of the boys didn't come up to the mural painting, and everyone was really concerned, and it was because he had gotten shot the day before by a rival gang member. However, the next day he showed up in a wheelchair, and he said the reason why he did show up was because this mural had given him so much family that he didn't feel alone anymore, and that the mural was really important to him and he wanted to help finish it. So he actually did end up painting down here. He just helped finish the mural because to him it was that important. And this story is one of the many stories of why street art in Pacoima is very, very important. So today I'm going to be talking to you about the importance of Pacoima street art. Here are some murals that I did see. Disclaimer, I did take all of the pictures in this PowerPoint except for the Mexican muralism ones, and I am going to argue that mural painting in Pacoima is essential for the community, and it relates to Mexican muralism, which is something we learned in our Latin America class. So my research question: why does the community of Pacoima need street art to thrive, and how does this relate to Mexican muralism? And my argument is, modern day muralism does relate to Mexican muralism. Not only that, but it gives the youths of Pacoima an identity, a family, a purpose, an escape, and financial benefits. First off, where is Pacoima? Pacoima is one of the oldest neighborhoods in the San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles. It is currently, the majority of it is Hispanic, and it is very important for many Hispanic people who come out of Mexico because this is the largest community outside of Mexico that has this many Hispanics. And in 1888, Pacoima became much more populated because it was an area where people started to have factory jobs, and so because of this blue collar work, a lot of people flocked because they wanted to have the jobs, especially with LA's very low unemployment rate at the time. It was only 8%. So when they came, Pacoima became formed because there's a lot of people, and in 1888, Van Nuys Boulevard was laid down the subdivision. And Van Nuys Boulevard is very important because that is where the majority of the art of today is, on the sides of that road. And the reason why that road was put through was to sort of make it like an official town. This was the main street going through the town, and today that is where all the art is laid. However, throughout the years, although there were many people coming in for jobs, the job unemployment rate soared, and it ended up being about 8% in the late 80s when LA was just much lower than that. Also, there were some socioeconomic and crime problems throughout the 90s. A lot of children were getting into gang activities, and they weren't underground. It was very volatile, and there were a lot of issues, so the community decided to do something about it. They all bonded together and they said, why don't we do some sort of recreational activity that brings all the children together and distracts them from all the crime that's been going on. So it was sort of like a self-policing activism idea where many people would come together on the weekends and go to shows, have barbecues, and they basically formed this very tight-knit community where the youths and gangs could be more productive with their time, especially because there were many policies that were starting to take place at the time that were not fair to a lot of people. For example, I will talk about this later, but there was something called gang injunction, which was a policy that the government of Los Angeles decided to incorporate, where if you were related to a gang member but had no previous gang issues, you still couldn't get a house in Pacoima. And Pacoima was going through a big housing development increase, and a lot of people needed space because the population was increasing. However, because if they were related to someone who wasn't a gang, they were discriminated against. And there was a big debate on whether it was a policy or if it was just discrimination to have these people suffer from gang injunction. Another problem at the time, and it still happens today, is the youths of Pacoima going and graffitiing all the art. So they would go in walls and do something what's called tagging, which is where they sort of take a spray can and they write their initials everywhere, on bathrooms, on walls, on storefronts. And the reason why they do this is because they are so ignored at home. They don't have anyone who pays attention to them. So they create a new identity for themselves and they go and they tag. And when police come and clean up their mess, it's giving them acknowledgement, it's giving them an identity. And so the purpose of the street art is to have these youths put in their time somewhere else with something more productive, but that still gives them an identity. So, in Pacoima, there is a relatively large art scene. It has grown to be what LA Times calls the most trendiest underground street venues of today, and it didn't start out quite that way. Many, many years ago, in the 90s, there was a ban on all street art because a lot of people would come in with advertisements, and back then advertisements were not put on billboards. They were put on walls, just painted all across, and the government had issues with people complaining about the advertisements that were going up in their neighborhoods. There were alcohol advertisements, advertisements demeaning women, and they didn't want their children to see this. And the government felt that it was an easy fix to, instead of determining what were advertisements and what was art, to just ban everything that was painted. And today there is a fee for that. And that is something that many people are very upset about because they feel that the art that they paint should be free because it's their freedom of expression. However, throughout the years, people decided to sort of start painting all these street arts, and now it has become not illegal, basically. It still is illegal, but the government does realize that it garners a lot of attention from the media, and so they just sort of let these people comment their social commentaries through art. Here are some of the murals that I saw while I was at Pacoima, and as you can see, there's definitely a cultural aspect to it. They also comment on things like environmental issues. This one is all about water, and this one talks about feminism and how to help the environment. So the murals of today, the purpose of them is to have people go and see that there are issues that need to be addressed. And as the people of Pacoima see these art pieces being formed, they are learning, they are having conversations about it, which is what the muralists are trying to do, especially because many of the people in Pacoima never see art outside of their own community. So the street art is very important for them because it helps teach them how to have conversations about the topics that plague them and their community. One of the muralists that I met with, Manny Velasquez, said, "Muralists are defiant and question authority. Making mural painting illegal violates our freedom of expression and steps on our toes." He's basically saying that murals are important to the community because they teach people things and they inspire conversation. These murals aren't like any of the other advertisements where it's just a way to get money. Instead, it's a place where people come together and try and discuss topics that are important to them and their community. And by taking that right away, you are taking away their freedom. So here are some more of the art pieces that I saw. This one is the beginning of what is known as the Mural Mall and is the start of the Van Nuys Boulevard art scene. And it is called the Renaissance Lady because this lady painted is obviously the Mona Lisa, but she's wearing her sombrero, and it is significant of the culture that is incorporated into people's communities. Also here, there's Diego Rivera, who's a very important muralist who is Mexican. And many people draw their inspiration from their murals, from his murals, because he used murals back in Mexico to comment on political atmospheres and social rights. And although today people still use these murals to comment on social rights, they use murals to talk about things that are more current. And the beauty of using murals versus other art forms is that the people who you're trying to target will see these murals from birth. They see you painting it day by day by day, and this helps them talk about it, and it helps inspire conversation. There is a big difference from murals versus graffiti because murals have a point to them. The point is there's some sort of social issue that they're making a commentary on, while the other art pieces do not. Here are some examples of some Mexican muralism from back in the day, and as you can see, there are some slight differences. For example, the colors are a bit more toned. However, these murals, like the people like Diego Rivera who painted them, he had the same idea. He wanted to inspire conversation about some sort of topic, and it generally had to do with social rights. Obviously, back then, he was not concerned about the environment, he was more concerned about the political atmosphere. But today in Pacoima, a lot of people are concerned about the environment, they are concerned about the political sphere, so these artists have to talk about it. So why are murals important, and why does this affect you? I think that although the murals of Pacoima help the youths because they help them create an identity, an escape, and some sort of financial help if they decide to use those tools later on in their life, the concept of mural painting is much more effective when you're trying to have some sort of conversation or social commentary on the justice system and what our community needs. And if all of us decide to use murals as some sort of way to make some sort of commentary, I think that our community would benefit a lot. We can learn from the people of Pacoima, we can learn from Mexican muralism, because clearly those art forms have been incredibly effective in how they decide to say things and how they have like a cry for help. So basically, as the youths of Pacoima benefit from these art forms because it helps them with their identity issues, with their community issues, it has brought them much closer together, and we can all take a page out of their book and learn the same thing.